Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony Robinson, Professor of Geography and Director of Online Geospatial Education Programs. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Penn State Symposium on Real Maps That Matter in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. We're really excited to welcome all of you here today to this really cool venue. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of the artwork to celebrate the 25th anniversary of what we do at Penn State Online Geospatial Education. On our agenda today, we have a really outstanding set of alumni and faculty speakers, followed by a roundtable discussion in which we'll invite you to participate as well. Before we start with that, I want to give you a brief overview of what this team has accomplished to reach this milestone. So Penn State has a really long tradition of distance learning, going all the way back to 1892 with the first correspondence program launched in agriculture. Fast forward more than 100 years later, this wonderful, charming 90s era Penn State Outreach magazine cover shows part of the group that launched the first ever online geospatial education program at Penn State with the goal of expanding who can access and be part of geography education at Penn State well beyond its borders to engage professional adult learners. So today, our programs include over 30 classes in GIS and spatial data science. They touch on over 50 different technologies and methods in our fields, and we've engaged thousands of students since our inception, awarding more than 4,000 degrees and certificates to date. In our first year, we had 4 classes, 143 enrollments, and a single non-credit bearing GIS certificate program, which was a huge success. Today, we routinely exceed 1,600 enrollments annually with 5 certificates, 3 master's degree programs, and over 30 different course options. But what we're most proud of, however, are our outstanding students. Folks like Angela, Gus, and Karen here are just a few examples of the incredible people that these programs have fostered. We're excited to see a bunch of you here today as well, current students and alumni. And I just want to give you a little brief overview of a few of these folks. Angela Chang came to GIS from a background in international relations, has worked as a geospatial analyst at Amnesty International and the International Red Cross. Gus Wright is a spatial data scientist in the U.S. Army and is a 125th anniversary fellow in our College of Earth and Mineral Sciences. And Karen Dudinsky was our first graduate of the Master of Science in Spatial Data Science program launched in 2020. She graduated in 2021. She works now as a natural hazards data scientist at the University of Washington. I want to also acknowledge the team that makes this possible. So this faculty group here really has unmatched expertise and care and commitment to teaching and advising. This group has really earned a reputation for outstanding one-on-one engagement with every student. That's something that really separates us, I think, from our peers. I want to recognize as well our staff and learning design team in the Dutton Institute, who have been really key to our success, sustainability, and innovation in online learning. We've accomplished a lot by always valuing innovation and growth and thinking about quality. And this year, we've made some really major steps toward integration as well. So this May, we've held our first ever graduate student symposium that brings together resident and online graduate students for an in-person research and professional development conference, which was fantastic. Success stories like this are made possible by the support of a Vanguard University and college. We are really fortunate to work in the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences, and I'd like you to please join me now in welcoming the Dean of the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences, Lee Kump.
Well, thanks, Anthony. You know, it just dawns on me that there's a great team of people who are behind everything that those of you who have taken our programs have benefited from. But there's also Anthony Robinson, who really, I know because he's behind the scenes advocating for the things that really are making this program so outstanding. So let's give Anthony a round of applause. And it was great. Well, it's great to see you all. How are you doing? Everyone here doing well? And also welcome to our folks online. It's great to have you with us as well. I've really been enjoying my time getting to know many of you over the course of the week so far, and I'm really excited about the future of online education, the geospatial education from the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences point of view. We've been at this for some time, as you see, and, sort of pioneering and putting forth quality online education for Penn State. And I think the Dutton Institute and the Department of Geography are well known on campus as leaders in this area. So been at it now 25 years for this program, and we're really looking forward to the next 25 years. You're about to see some really excellent examples of what this program has wrought from our faculty, our students, and our alumni, and they really embody the cutting edge of what's happening in geospatial education and practice. The new era of AI-enabled science and technology poses opportunities and challenges for us, but programs like that offered in our geography department address everything from the future of mapping to human capacities needed to ensure a sustainable planet. What's more, with our online programs, as all of you know, we can reach beyond campus and extend our impact across the nation and across the world. And I think that's really an exciting aspect of our ability to leverage the expertise that we develop on campus in University Park and spread that across the university and across the world. So I'd next like to turn it over to our host for the rest of the program today, the founding director of the Dutton Institute and online geospatial education programs at Penn State, David DiBiase. David?
Oh, wow, here we are. Thanks, Dean Kump, and thanks, Anthony. As some of you know, Anthony succeeded me as director of the geospatial programs in 2011 and has done a great job. I've been fortunate enough to stay involved part-time from my home in California ever since. I'm grateful to Anthony for the opportunity to host this celebration of 25 years of Penn State online education and to add a few reflections about our experience. And I'm grateful to you all, especially for being with us. Considering the difference between the guy pictured in this article from 1999 and the guy on this podium this morning, it's fair to say that 25 years is a pretty long time. The occasion of this article was the launch of our very first online GIS course. It's a sign of changing times that our startup was considered newsworthy. There's nothing unusual about online education anymore. Back then, however, teaching online was not only unusual, for some people in higher education, it was threatening and even morally questionable. Skeptics warned of digital diploma mills. Faculty colleagues worried about undermining the traditional on-campus college experience. I myself wondered whether distance education might be a Faustian bargain. I went out on a limb when I wrote that geography educators have a moral obligation to serve lifelong learners. As I look back over our 25-year run, I still reflect on those arguments and concerns. It's true, we were successful in attracting and serving online students and in collaboration with our partners at Penn State's World Campus in generating new enrollments and tuition revenue for the university. But by the way, this illustration is from our very first marketing brochure. And you can see one of the learner creatures has a CD-ROM in its hand. That too is another sign of the passage of time. We were celebrated in our time as innovators in our field and recognized by our peers as providers of high quality online education. But the true measure of our efforts and of the university's strategic vision in enabling us to even try is the students and faculty members our programs attracted and what they've accomplished since they've been here, since they joined us. With that in mind, this morning's program features brief presentations by alumni and faculty members of our online and on-campus geography and geospatial programs. We'll follow that up with a roundtable discussion with all of our presenters and also with you, our guests. Let's begin with presentations, beginning with May Lacey, who earned the MS in Spatial Data Science in 2022, and her faculty advisor, Marcela Suarez. Thanks again for being here.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David, for that excellent introduction. And it's so great to be here with you all today. Good morning. My name is May Lacey, and I'm joining you because the maps we make and the skills we build in programs like Penn State's online geospatial education program can have a very real, tangible impact on the world. I use spatial data science and GIS every day in my work as a data scientist in environmental conservation. And I have this program to thank for helping me to build the skills and the confidence to do so. Over the next few minutes, I want to take you on a brief journey from my roots in the forests of Pennsylvania all the way to my current work applying tools like machine learning and AI to address some of the most pressing conservation questions we face today. Along the way, I'll share how Penn State's online geospatial education program helped me shape that path and why I believe GIS is uniquely positioned at the intersection of data, design, and decision-making in a way that can have a lasting impact. So first, let's take a step back. I grew up in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, surrounded by woodlands, streams, and wildlife. That's where my love for the natural world began, long before I ever knew what GIS was. Even then, I knew I wanted to protect these places that I loved, like what you're looking at here. But it took some time for me to figure out how to turn that passion into real action. Protecting the environment often starts with understanding what's happening across landscapes. I became fascinated by the applications of geospatial tools given their natural fit for this problem. They can bring clarity to complex systems, and they can help us see patterns in space that matter, like the water occupying the space between the trees in this forest, or perhaps the trees lost to pests in this ecosystem, like the emerald ash borer. We can track and make sense of patterns and things like this using maps. That passion eventually brought me to Washington, D.C., where I started using maps to show how climate and land use change affect species and ecosystems, maps that are meant to inform conservation policy. I began to see firsthand how a well-designed map could help protect a species or a landscape before it disappears off that map entirely. When I joined the online geospatial education program at Penn State to pursue my MS in spatial data science, I wanted to build on that experience. I became the first student to pursue a thesis-based master's degree in my program, and with the incredible mentorship of my advisor, Dr. Marcela Suarez, I developed a project focused on an analytical approach that's often a key component of conservation efforts, species distribution models. Pixel by pixel, I use data sets representing different landscape characteristics to predict where species may be found in space and time. I was encouraged to push the boundaries of my work, and in doing so came to appreciate the incredible power of pairing GIS with tools like machine learning and AI. I used machine learning to analyze spatial patterns and species distributions, which is an approach I've now applied in my work from right here in California all the way to Brazil. These models help us understand where species are thriving or declining and where we need to act to slow biodiversity loss. Doing this kind of modeling and communicating these results made me realize just how much GIS sits at the intersection of science and storytelling. And I continue to grow and learn each day using GIS to convey the importance of the landscapes and ecosystems we all call home, from the policymakers on DC's Capitol Hill to the governor's office here in California, all the way to places like the tiny town where I grew up in Pennsylvania. As the daughter of an engineer and an artist who have always loved the environment and getting outside, it may come as no surprise that conservation GIS resonates with me. It's where I get to be analytical, digging into data, algorithms, and code, but also creative, designing maps and visuals that tell powerful, meaningful stories. And it's all done with the goal of conserving our environment and this place we call home. What you see here is what I call home, and it's exactly where my passion for mapping landscapes began. There's a quote by Richard Louv that I often come back to. We cannot protect something we do not love, we cannot love what we do not know, and we cannot know what we do not see. The maps I create can help to tell the stories of the landscapes and the species we stand to lose, and help people truly see the natural world around them. Today, I work as a data scientist for a conservation nonprofit, Conservation Science Partners. I use the skills I gained at Penn State every single day, and now I'm beginning to leverage AI to improve the efficiency and depth of my work. At the heart of it all, one thing remains clear. While tools like machine learning and AI can help us detect patterns, it's GIS paired with human insight that allow us to see those patterns in space, understand their context, and communicate them in ways that inform action, from my backyard to places all across the globe. I'll always be grateful to this program for giving me the foundation to do just that. So with that, thank you all for your time.
Oh, that one gets me every time. It's just great. And Marcela, her advisor, Marcela Suarez, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, May, for that introduction. Working with you was truly a joy and an honor. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcela Suarez. I'm very excited to be here today for this important event and to share a bit about my journey in the geospatial community and in education. So my story began in Bogota, Colombia, where I was born and raised. I was trained as an engineer. And it was during that training that I discovered maps, GIS, and the geospatial world. And what made this geospatial world very attractive to me was how clearly I could see their applications in real world problems that has an immediate impact and a real impact. So from the very beginning, I was drawn to its potential. So what you see here is one of my earliest experiences. Oh my God, I'm nervous. Was working with an indigenous group in the southern Colombia, mapping risk scenarios and climate change. It was a powerful and humbling experience. It showed me how meaningful it could be to communicate, to teach students to collect their own data and to teach them to make their own maps. In this way, I also help them to understand and document their environments. They teach me also how to create their life plans and preserve and cherish knowledge. So fast forward, when I was finishing my graduate school and heard about the opportunity to work for the online geospatial program at Penn State, what drew me in was not only the beauty of Pennsylvania and its seasons for the first time in my life, but also a deep connection to two aspects of my earlier experiences. First, when I was working in Colombia, I was constantly looking for ways to improve my skills. I was always working with geospatial data, always wanting to learn more, always wanted to learn about new technologies, but I was limited. I was limited by my geographic location and I was limited by time. I was working full time and there were not many opportunities to continue further education. So when I saw this program offering high quality education to people regardless of where they live or how busy they are, I saw the immediate value. I thought of all the amazing people I have worked back in Colombia, doing important work for their government or for their communities that has no further access to further training. So second, I also recognize myself in the students. Many of them, or you here, come to the program with years of experience in GIS. Some are looking to deepen their skills. Others are pivoting into new areas, but what they all share is a real drive to grow. So once I started teaching at Penn State, I was honestly amazed by how diverse our students' skills and backgrounds are. Some arrive with a very clear knowledge of what they want to, how they want to apply their education, like you could see with May. And others are exploring new territory, which is also great. For example, in my cartography course, I have seen students creating amazing first maps. This was one student's first map. And as you can see, it shows bringing in some strong instincts for visual communication. This is another, oh, sorry, this doesn't look that clear, but this was a really good map, another example of a really good map. And even in cases like this, when their first maps are this good, students are eager to learn more cartographic theory behind the design decisions they make to continue improving their maps. And even they challenge themselves and continue creating better maps. The same goes for technical challenges. Some students come with very clear, strong writing skills, excellent ideas about research questions, but less experience with coding. Others are hesitant to engage with certain technologies because of their past experiences, but I have seen them evolve through our weekly meetings, through their work, or these kind notes that they send to me. Honestly, witnessing that evolution is one of the things I enjoy the most. So over time, I start asking myself questions like, how can we support the individual learning processes of each student, given how different their starting points are? And how can we help them succeed as technologies and expectations change? So what I have learned is that with intentional, personalized support, we can help students realize their potential wherever they are starting from. The more I teach, the more my own practices changes. I now prioritize meeting students earlier to identify what they need and how they learn. And this approach has made a difference. I have seen students taking risks, gaining confidence, and creating works that reflects both who they are, and where they want to go. And I want to think that these practices have paid off. So overall, I think that my path from the field in Colombia to the virtual classrooms in Penn State has shown me how powerful geospatial education can be when it reaches beyond borders and adapts to diverse learners. And perhaps the most rewarding part of this journey is that it's never one directional. This teaching is a two-way exchange, and I have learned so much from my students, some of them here, from their processes, from their creativity and their resilience. They continue to inspire me every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcella and May. Next, we'll hear about another two-way exchange, this one involving Robert Ford, who earned the Master of GIS degree in 2022, and his advisor, Dr. Helen Greatrix.
Right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert Ford, and I am the Penn State MGIS alumni from Buckeye Country, Columbus, Ohio. I'm here to talk about my MGIS experience at Penn State and how it's impacted my role as the information systems manager for the Columbus Division of Fire. I'm also here with my advisor, Dr. Helen Greatrix, who was an amazing advisor during my time with Penn State.
Thanks. And hi. Yeah, it's awesome to see you all. I'm Helen Greatrix. I'm an assistant professor split between the departments of geography in Earth and Mineral Sciences, statistics in the Eberly College of Science, and the Institute of Computational and Data Science. I have a long job title. I'm really excited to be here, though, in part because of my background. So I'm maybe a non-traditional academic. A lot of my work before coming to Penn State was working in applied consultancy and applied research in weather risk management. And so a lot of my work for a decade was supporting professionals in their job to, especially in the humanitarian space, to help people deal with weather-related disaster. And so coming here in more of an academic role has been awesome, and I genuinely love teaching undergrads, but being part of this program has been amazing. I get to work again with professionals. I get to help them solve their problems, and so I'm really proud to be standing here next to Rob today. And so today we're going to take you through maybe Rob's journey through this MGIS. And actually, I believe you also didn't start out as a geographer, right? Like I was a meteorologist.
Yeah, so I actually, my background is in environment and natural resources with a focus in forestry. And so I kind of transitioned to a job as a GIS technician with the Columbus Division of Fire in 2015. You can see all the stats there. We're a very large department. We respond to many emergencies throughout the year. We have 35 stations, a 36th in the works. But yeah, back in 2015, when I was first hired, I started out at their 911 center. And so I was able to see how much information gets pushed through a 911 center. And I kind of saw an opportunity to push the Division of Fire's analytics and GIS capabilities with all of that data. And I kind of fell in love with feeling like the maps that I was making were actually meaningful for people kind of on their worst days of their lives, but also for our first responders. The maps that I was making were helping them respond to emergencies appropriately and as efficiently as possible. And so I kind of started seeing all these different advanced analytics in blogs, ArcGIS News, other agencies doing certain things. And so I had a little bit of FOMO. And so I started looking at opportunities to further my education. And, I looked at many different programs, and finally I landed on Penn State.
So yeah, this feels like a good opportunity to build on everything Marcella was saying about our MGIS and why we try and tailor it to the needs of professionals. And so we were really excited to have Rob join us. And so probably the font is a little bit too small for you to read, but maybe that gives a sense of these are all of some of the courses we've offered over the years and all of the courses that we're currently offering. And you can see they span a range of different topics. They span a range of different skills and areas. And we try and tailor those to the needs of professionals in a few ways. One is this personalized individual instruction, or having office hours in like weekends or out of hours and things like that. But also it's this idea that those courses can be used to, like, within every course, whether it's remote sensing or whether it's in GIS, we try and help each person taking it, like, tailor it to what they're actually doing in their everyday jobs and in their everyday lives. And so I think, for example, this is Rob's route through the MGIS.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I really chose Penn State and I really enjoyed my time here was because it really looked like the most comprehensive program. You can see how many different courses, like Helen said, are here. And it touched on a lot of subjects I had researched on my own and seen in some of these ArcGIS news articles and things like that. And the other great thing about this is all of these different courses that I took resulted in some sort of viable product that I was able to show my bosses and city administrators. For example, during my remote sensing course, I was able to develop a model using LiDAR information to help classify damaged or decaying buildings that could help alert firefighters to potentially unsafe firefighting conditions. In my business intelligence course, I was able to produce maps that showed where industrial hazards are most concentrated, where population centers are most concentrated. So things like nursing homes, apartments, things like that. And of course, the MGIS capstone project, which is how I was linked with Helen.
So yeah, the capstone is a big part of the MGIS, whether it's the dissertation route or whether it's a more applied route. And one of the reasons why is that it gives people a chance to interact with Penn State scholars and researchers who are sort of working at the top of their field, but also it gives you more time and space to really dig into a topic that was interesting. And because of my background in supporting weather-related disasters, I was super excited to be paired with Rob and to get to do more work in that space, especially because his project was so fascinating. Okay, so you all know what this is. You've all seen a fire truck, right? And so this in particular is a ladder. This is the one with the super tall ladder that goes up to help you if you have a fire in a skyscraper. They're not cheap. They're about $2.5 million each. And Columbus, Ohio, as a result, doesn't have them everywhere. Like they're expensive, but they're going out to about, I think it was like 14,000 calls a year or something like that. And out of the 35 stations, they have about 15 or 16. Rob's project was actually super simple, as directed by his boss, like it was a middle school project. They were thinking of investing in 3 new fire trucks, 3 new ladders. And here is the Columbus area. You can see how complicated their delivery sort of area is. Those little red dots are the 35 fire stations. If it has a yellow square, it currently has a ladder. The project was simple. You have 3 new fire trucks. Which station should you put them in? Which little red dot should you color yellow? And of course, though, the trouble then becomes when you get into the detail. This, for example, is a heat map over just 2 years of about 30,000 calls of where those ladders went. And that big blob in the center, for those who don't know Columbus, is the downtown region. But you can see how complex it is. It's not a case of just, oh, we'll put a ladder over here in this one. It gets even more complex where you see when you start to link this with things like response times. For example, this is a map now of where it took ladders more than 6 minutes to arrive, which is sort of an operational, you want to get a ladder there within 6 minutes if you're having a fire. And so suddenly you've gone from this simple idea to this really complicated GIS problem where we have a couple of billion data points to help us solve it.
So yeah, we explored many different techniques to analyze this problem. We did things like vulnerability analysis, space-time analysis, hazard analysis, hotspots, closest facility, many, many different things. So a little bit more nuanced than just a few heat maps. And so in order to turn all of those maps into actionable information for our administrators, we really had to involve them, the firefighters themselves. And so they were able to quickly see patterns that I, as a non-firefighter, wouldn't have been able to see because they lived it. They're out there doing the work, responding to emergencies. And so they were really able to extrapolate between all these different results and come up with kind of their own conclusions on things. And finally, the easiest way to help our guys kind of understand all of this information was by creating a dashboard that they could interact with.
And in fact, Rob created a whole series of dashboards and tools and posters on the bottom left. He won a couple of awards at Esri for it. He also won a couple of awards from the fire service for it, as you can see in the photos. And that sort of that interaction though between Rob's like the academic side and working with professionals and working with the people in this field, that's why this is so important. That's why this MGIS is so important. Because if you're just a student doing this as like your academic role, it's great. You're learning things, you're learning those skills. But if you're doing it as a professional, you're actually making things people use, and you're able in real time to go back to your boss and be like, I'm halfway through my project. Should I be going in another direction? Should I be doing this? Can we actually make these things useful? And for me as an academic, and for me as on the other side, it helps too. I get to hear that direct feedback in terms of my own scholarship and in terms of like how I think about my research career. And so know that I think these dashboards, they didn't just stop with the MGIS project. In fact, I think you're saying that they get used a lot across the board now.
Yeah, so the exact analytics that we showed you in some of the previous slides are being used for things like proper drug vault placement, ambulance placement, other types of fire trucks and apparatus. Also trying to figure out where things should be shifted as the city grows. Intel is actually building one of their new manufacturing facilities in the northeastern part of Columbus, and so that's going to really kind of draw development to that section of town. So a lot of the different analytics that we came up with during the MGIS are currently in use today. And so a lot of what I learned from the MGIS at Penn State is now going into creating actual standards, GIS standards, so that our department can quickly provide support when things like a new fire truck is purchased or goes out of service, a new fire station needs to be put in place, or one actually ends up closing, which just recently happened with us. And so the MGIS really helped us develop standards, but also a standard way of communicating very complex issues to non-technical folks like city administrators that maybe don't know anything about firefighting or GIS. And so being able to communicate these very complex issues with the stakeholders and policymakers has been very game-changing for us. We actually have a citywide GIS user forum where I presented a lot of these things that I learned here at Penn State that a lot of the departments, other departments in the city are now using for their own types of problems.
And so with that, thank you for your time. And if you want to know where those, where we decided those 3 fire trucks should go, I believe you'll have to find Rob or I after the presentation. Thank you.
Finally, a win in Columbus, Ohio. Thanks. Thanks a lot for that, Rob. So next, we're going to hear from Sid Pandey, an outstanding alumnus of our on-campus bachelor's degree program in geography. Sid.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for everyone that's calling in online. I'm excited to be here and to talk for a couple minutes about something I feel is personally very important, and that's guiding the next generation. A little bit about myself. So I'm not an alumni of this program, so I appreciate you letting me have breakfast with you and hang out here. But I got my bachelor's in 2014 in the geography program. Please don't throw anything at me. I got my master's from the University of Maryland in GIS. As of 2 weeks ago, I'm now one of the newest members of the GEMS board as a geography representative. Thank you. I currently sit on the board of directors for the Geospatial Professional Network, or formerly known as EURISA. And prior to that, served on their Vanguard cabinet, which is their young professional board. And in my day job, I do work for Deloitte and their location intelligence practice based in Roslyn, Virginia. And so I don't share all of this to just brag about myself, but really all of these opportunities were made possible by so many people that have influenced me throughout my career, mentored me, and helped steer me, towards great opportunities. And that's something that I think is really important, especially in the age of AI. So career mapping, it matters, right? So I spend a lot of time talking to emerging professionals about how to grow in their career, how to be active in the industry, and to grow. And one of the things I hear pretty often is that, we need more leaders, we need more mentors, we need folks to help coach us and, help show us the way. I actually helped run a mentoring program through the GPN, and that was one of the consistent issues we had. We never had enough mentors, right? And Penn State builds incredible leaders, and I'm lucky to be standing here in front of a large number of them. And I know there's many online as well. And so I just want to take a couple minutes today to encourage everyone, if you aren't already, and I know many of you are, to serve as a mentor and to help others grow in their careers. And so I just wanted to share 3 thoughts. So the first one here is just share the detours in your careers, not just the destinations. So I was a struggling student early in my career at Penn State. And I had one conversation with Jody, sorry, try not to get emotional, that completely changed my life. I was seriously considering, leaving Penn State because I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. My grades weren't great. And I had a conversation with Jody and talked about how I enjoyed Brian's geography 20 or 30, I forget which number it was, but that class. And I had a passion for computers and technology, and she exposed me to GIS. And that sent me down an incredible path, which led me to all of the opportunities that I've had that I just could not be more grateful for. So Jody, thank you for what you did for me. And and all the students that you work with. We all have the power to have that kind of influence on folks as well. And that's why I encourage so many people to just take that opportunity to speak with folks, help mentor and encourage people, because you can change lives. And part of that also involves encouraging involvement and engagement in the industry. So I'm a member of the GPN. I know many of you are probably members of other professional organizations. And I hear it all the time, like where are the, the new folks? Like we need more people to come in. We have these activities and boards and committees, and there's never enough people to get all the work done, right? Because we're all volunteering. And this is just one of the things that I think we could all do better as an industry of, is just encouraging more people to find their way into industries early in their career, because that was something that I was encouraged to do at the very beginning of mine. So any chance I get, I always try to go back and speak to students and speak to folks who are early career and encourage them that you don't need to have 10 years of experience to be on a committee or to sit on a board. You just have to be willing to help and be active. And one of the last things I'll share is to, be the connector. So I don't know where this quote came from, but I really appreciate it, because all of the best managers that I've had and the best mentors I've had haven't just told me like, this is where you need to go, but they've given me the compass. They've helped share their networks with me. They've helped, share where opportunities could be and given me the tools to go pursue and find it on my own. And that has just allowed me to grow so much. And these are just a few of many, many people who've influenced my career, along the way. And so again, I just want to encourage all of you, use your networks, use your influence and what you know to help guide the next generation. And so I'll just leave you with, like, as you think about your personal and professional legacy and what you want to leave behind in the age of AI and how things are changing so rapidly in our world right now, I still feel that the real maps that matter most are the ones that we'll help others make. Thank you. And so now I get the opportunity to introduce the most interesting man in the world. And one of the nicest, and actually, I normally get nervous. I feel like we all agree. We normally get nervous before speaking, but he did such an amazing job preparing us for this. So thank you so much. And I'm glad to hand you the mic as well. So thanks, Dave.
Wow, wasn't expecting that. Okay, one more little lightning talk, and then we're going to move to a discussion section, if you please. Following from Sid's talk about real maps that matter, I'll now add a few comments that also relate to our symposium theme, making maps that matter in the age of artificial intelligence. My main role in the online geospatial programs these days is ethics education. My lightning talk will focus on how we've begun to use AI to help students learn ethics. Penn State instituted a research ethics training requirement for all graduate students in 2009. Our ethics training addresses professional geospatial ethics as well as research ethics. You might be wondering, what does geospatial technology have to do with ethics? Well, consider this scenario. Imagine you're a geospatial intelligence analyst who's responsible for monitoring potential threats using remote sensing, GPS, and social media. Pattern recognition and predictive analytics suggest a possible terrorist plot. Some members of your team advocate for preemptive action. Others raise concerns about false positives, civil liberties violations, and the use of individuals' location data without their consent. What's your advice to leadership about how to balance national security interests with ethical and legal considerations? And by the way, if you've had a cartography course, you're probably thinking, what is with this map? It's a ridiculous display. And in fact, it's a fake map created by the AI known as Claude, specifically to illustrate this scenario. Our ethics training curriculum is designed to help students develop the moral reasoning skills they need to respond to scenarios like that one, which arise more often than you might think. In workshops and graduate seminars, students learn that it's not enough to memorize a code of ethics, and it's certainly not enough just to ask an AI what to do. That's not to say, however, that AI doesn't have a role to play in ethics education. To state the obvious, generative artificial intelligence is a disruptive technology, and nowhere more so, perhaps, than education. Like every other higher education institution, Penn State has struggled to manage that disruption. This has been a challenge because the faculty is not of one mind about how to respond. The university's current guidance is that each faculty member should establish a policy for students' use of AI in their classes. Faculty may choose to prohibit AI altogether, or to allow AI for specified purposes, or to permit AI use for anything except exams. That latter permissive approach exemplified by what Ethan Mollick, a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, calls co-intelligence. In that spirit, to help illustrate a concept for my ethics classes, I asked the large language model Claude to help in creating a conceptual map of the ethics landscape in the geospatial field. Claude promptly obliged by outlining aspects of what it describes as a complex ethical terrain. Good use of the spatial metaphor. I was impressed by that from Claude. So here's Claude's outline of the conceptual map. Since we only have time to glance at the response, you'll have to take my word for the quality of Claude's synthesis of its very large training set, which apparently includes extensive literature on geospatial technology and data ethics. I then asked Claude to help me visualize the content it produced. Here, after many iterations, is what we produced together. I must say, collaborating with Claude felt like supervising an enthusiastic intern who's very fluent in HTML and cascading style sheets coding, but doesn't have the faintest clue about graphics or information design. Even so, I suggest that this simplistic illustration is at least the beginning of a map that really matters in the age of artificial intelligence. Returning to our ethics training program, this slide highlights an aspiration for our online geospatial education programs. The highlighted text reads, "Our program promotes ethics across the curriculum." Our ideal is that students should encounter and discuss ethical challenges in every course we offer. An obstacle to that goal is the fact that case studies and discussion topics, like the one I shared at the outset of this talk, don't exist for every class. For several reasons I don't have time to go into here, ethics cases are difficult and time-consuming to write. That was true until our graduate student, Robert Myers, trained ChatGPT to help instructors create cases and discussion prompts for all of our online geospatial classes. An example of that is the scenario I shared with you at the beginning of this presentation. Thanks to Robert and to AI, it's now much easier for instructors to realize our goal of ethics across the curriculum. Thank you, Robert, and thanks to all of you for your attention to this. Okay, we're going to move into a relatively brief discussion section. And in this discussion, we're going to return to the theme of the symposium, Maps in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. And I want to ask our cast members to discuss a couple of questions. One, and these are questions you all should take to heart, because we're going to ask you to respond in a little while. How is AI changing your geospatial professional practice? And for the educators, how should it change geospatial education? And to kick off that conversation, I'd like to return to our director who came up with the theme for this symposium, Anthony Robinson, who is like everybody else in the room, certainly has opinions about AI.
Thanks, David. So, yeah, I'm kind of between these two spaces. It's my professional practice to lead an academic program, and my job is also to be an educator. I teach a freshman class called Maps in the Geospatial Revolution, which targets general education audience. So I have me versus 250 phones every fall. And I'm trying to get people excited about geography. In this class, I do try to discourage people from using ChatGPT to just provide lab answers. It's fascinating to see what happens when one does that, because most of all the models that we have at least ready access to have no concept of spatial reasoning, and they cannot actually answer most spatial lab questions. They will create an answer, but they're not actually giving a real answer. On the flip side of that, I would say at the graduate seminar level, I taught a class last spring with some of our resident masters and PhD students. And one of the things we tried to do was to try to make any of a large array of current AI tools to make a thematic map that was decent. And through the course of an entire semester of attempting to do this all kinds of different ways, we kind of reached the conclusion that it's easier to learn how to become a cartographer and to just do it that way than it is to figure out how to get the scripting to make a reasonable web map and then export that to something else. So we're not there yet. One group at Wuhan University, for example, has made something called MapGPT, which requires 68 custom programmed modules inside ChatGPT to make what amounts to a week one very bare bones thematic map in a cartography class. So I'm excited actually that this isn't something solved yet. It's quite difficult to make maps that are reasonable in this domain, and we have a lot to learn from this example, I think, from now. So,
thanks, boss. So let's ask some of our graduates how AI is changing your geospatial practice. May, can we return to May? You have a few thoughts about that?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, David. So again, I'm a data scientist at an environmental nonprofit, Conservation Science Partners. And the way we're structured is we're divided kind of across 5 labs that all collaborate quite closely. But one in particular is our analytics lab. We are very focused on spatial analytics within that lab. One of the things that we are really trying to leverage now there is AI. And so we're thinking about how we're implementing different deep learning models and how we're leveraging remote sensing imagery and trying to stay on top of the incredible wealth of data that are available to us, and trying to make sense of that. And so thinking about, again, in the environmental space, how are landscapes changing? How is human land use changing? What does the human land use footprint look like? What areas might we be losing access to nature in? What does that look like for communities? AI and the deep learning models that we can produce using those resources has really helped us to be nimble and work quickly in getting a lot of those answers. And that paired with the increase in computing capacity that we can get with cloud-based tools, it's really, really expanded our impact and our ability to get meaningful and fairly extensive results. We're no longer limited to a small area. With a lot of these tools, we can start to think about, okay, what does this look like for an entire state? How about an entire region? What about all of the US? We can do a lot of these analyses and look at changes through time using AI and deep learning. So that's been a really wonderful aspect of it in expanding our own ability to kind of make sense of these really complex data sets.
Awesome. Thank you. And Rob Ford, how is AI affecting fire and emergency management in Columbus?
Yeah, so during my speech, I mentioned the MGI has really helped communicate complex problems. ChatGPT has actually done that as well, because I, as a GIS professional, have to communicate what the results of these analyses mean in firefighter speak. And so I can use AI to help me do that. So it really helps me communicate things back and forth between a non-technical audience and technical people like myself and my team. And so AI has been really helpful in increasing communication, really. And also the other aspect that we use it for a lot is understanding. A lot of the Esri tools don't have the best kind of documentation about them. And so, tools like ChatGPT can scour the internet for other, people that have created how-to guides or things like that. And so that's been really helpful in my guys and myself trying to understand how some of these tools work and being able, again, to communicate how they work to a non-technical audience.
Thank you. And Sid Pandey, I imagine that a global corporation like Deloitte must have a lot of engagements with AI.
Yeah, we're highly encouraged to use the technology and find ways to infuse it into our work. So it's becoming, a very, very regular part of our day. I think the way it's changing the geospatial practice is like for me, I was never a great Python programmer, and at least early in my career felt like that held me back a little bit. Now just being able to have it assist you, not having it write it all for you, right? Creating some of those automation scripts and those processes to get you past the 80% of work that we used to have to do, pretty manually with just making sure the data is usable, to actually then being able to create something meaningful and interrogate the data in the ways that we want to answer more impactful questions. It's allowing us to get to that point a lot faster now. So
thank you. And let's bring it back to education. Marcella, how do you think AI ought to change geospatial education moving forward?
I think I would like to build on what Sid said, because what I have noticed in my practice, and especially I see that in the class that works as an intro to spatial data science in R. I think our role as instructors is usually not thinking about supporting students during the 10 weeks we have with them, but more like how they are going to continue learn by themselves, right? And a lot in coding is like, where do you ask for help? When you get stuck in code, where do you go and look for help? So there's first lessons that I used to have before all this explode. That is like, what is a good search in Google? What characteristics should have your questions to get to not get stuck? But now, as soon as I start teaching, I realized the first tool was not Google, but it was the ChatGPT, right? And please write the code for me. If you can, please write the full script for me. And then they realize they get this pretty cool script, but when you run, it doesn't work, right? So what we are learning is okay, how we can ask create the right prompt. When do we ask for help? And so what we realize is pretty much what you say is it's not going to create the map for you. It's not going to create the our shiny app for you, but it's where do I need? And so it's mostly, I think it has changed, of course, but it's and we need to adapt to these new technologies, but it's similarly, it's how we help them continue learning and asking for help and using the tools to move forward. Yeah.
Thank you. And Helen Greatgrass, how do you think?
Yeah, I kind of want to echo what everyone else has been saying. And I don't know if anyone, I guess like me, is at least in your early 40s. You remember when Wikipedia came out and everyone was like, oh God, the world is either going to end or no one's ever going to write a book again. Wikipedia is going to solve everything. And it's kind of settled down into a tool that's really useful. We don't have to have exams where we remember dates anymore, but it's not taken over the world. And I think with AI, it's kind of similar to that. We've even started using the word AI to cover a whole load of different models and a whole load of different things. And that's, I think, going to be our role within education is just like we now teach people how to use Wikipedia, it's how do we use these different tools to become useful and to help us be humans and do our jobs and have the impact we want. And so I think that echoing Anthony, in my classes, freely encourage the use of tools like ChatGPT. And in all of my rubrics, there is nothing about use of ChatGPT in there. Like if they put it all into ChatGPT and like come out, they're allowed to do that. What I found is that two things. I found one is that I have a group of students who maybe like they're the students who are struggling, who would normally struggle a little anyway, did try and just put it all into ChatGPT. According to the rubric, they got about the same grade. There was about a C plus, because they weren't capturing the nuance of what we were trying to do, and that tool wasn't helping them do any better than they were doing. But there's also a group of like the students who in my undergrad classes are now doing master's level work because they're able to put nuance in there and context in there. And it was clear they were using these tools to help them go like an extra step, that they were essentially having a custom person sitting next to them. And so I think it's our responsibility as educators to help more people become like the second group, like to help people realize that they don't just stick everything in, just like in Wikipedia. We don't just ask people to, copy and paste the Wikipedia article in their professional practice. And so finally with that, but I think we're learning together, and that's why this program is also so important. And so finally, I just wanted to share one idea that came from one of my undergrads, which has transformed how I think of AI and using it in my practice and my teaching. And that is, their idea was, think of a person, picture them in your head, like either someone who's maybe slightly more senior or older, or your older sibling or your TA or something like that. Someone who's like always willing to help you, no matter what. They are there, but they're never going to tell you if they don't know the answer. They'll say something. They're kind of gonna like, and for when you use AI, no longer call it ChatGPT. Don't call it AI. Never tell them. Call it their name. And so my brother David and I do this with each other. And so I don't call it ChatGPT. I call it David. And then every ethical question goes away. Is it all right for like David to help me with my grammar and my final report? It's like, yeah, sure. Is it all right for David to write my report for me and then I just hand it in with my name? Is like, no, not if you get caught. Lots of people get their siblings to help. How is it okay if David tells me that I know elephants fly and I put that in my report and in my citation, but David told me. We wouldn't do that. Instead, we were like, okay, I guess I'll have to Google this and use the source. And so every question kind of becomes more useful if you think about that one type of AI, large language modeling, as a person that you're talking to, because then you start to realize its limitations. David is great at language. He's never had cartography training. So it's that sense, and that's why I think within our space, that's why we're all here, and that's why putting these tools into the future, it's why it's so, we need all of us here in the room to work out how we use them and why we do.
Good ideas. Before we begin to close the program for today, we really do want to take, even if it's just a couple of minutes, to hear questions from you all. Does anybody have a question that they would like to raise, or a thought that they would like to raise about AI? We have one online.
Mike Loudon asked, we know that AI has limitations as well as great promise. With respect to GIS, what do you foresee are some of those areas of great promise and some areas of concern for misuse? And he said some of our speakers addressed that, but he wanted to hear some other examples.
I'll talk a little bit about maybe the second part of that question, which is misuse. One of the things that is interesting about the theme of this meeting is thinking about real maps that matter. And part of that prompts an idea of like, what is a fake map? And I guess a thing I'll let just kind of simmer for a little bit is that all maps are fake. And the reason I say that is not because I don't love cartography. I'm a cartographer through and through. And David is also a cartographer. So I was interested to hear that David's not a cartographer. Yeah, you're David. David's also ChatGPT. I was like, whoa, this is blowing my mind. And David has kind of been my ChatGPT for a long time. So the reason I say that all maps are fake in a sense is tongue in cheek, of course, but everything that we do in mapping is simplifying the infinitely complex reality around us so we make sense out of it. And an interesting thing at this moment is that we have these devices that get us from point A to point B, and they work extremely well. And so our trust levels in these things are, I would submit, are probably getting higher and higher over time. We believe that maps have this power. We are all compelled by, everybody in this room is excited about geography, so I don't have to tell you this, but we're compelled by what we see on them. And that's a really interesting intersection alongside thematic mapping that can be easily changed. So we can manipulate this with someone else. Someone else calling in. We have a caller. We have a radio show caller. I don't know how this is even happening there. Hello, caller. You're on the air. I've always wanted to do that. No one's listening to. Yeah. So the second part of that question is quite interesting to me, and I think that we should be prepared for folks to very quickly make a map that looks the way they want it to look. That already is quite possible, but AI will make that even more possible over time. All right. Oh, it's actually the gallery phone. Okay, I was like, how are you getting a phone call on your laptop? Is that Teams phone thing? I was like, God, we knew it was going to bite us at some point. Yes. Okay, thanks. Yeah, we are out of time. I'm going to stand up here and say thank you, first of all of you. So a round of applause for everybody here. I'd really like to thank David, my ChatGPT, the person who has done such an amazing job leading this program through its initial phases, its maturity, and also helping us gather today and making this such a special event. So thank you, David. I would like now to welcome to the stage Professor Brian King, our department head in geography. He's going to help kind of close things out a little bit here and lead us into the rest of the day. One thing I'll mention before I finish here is that we do have a reception tonight, 6:30 to 9:30 at the Naughty Barrel. And Beth King, raise your hand in the back. Beth has tickets for that. If you don't already have one, please talk to her. We would love to see you there.
Thank you. I might put this in here. Okay, can you still hear me okay? Okay, great. So I don't know all of you. I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Brian King. I'm a professor in the Department of Geography. I'm also the department head. I'm entering my 5th year as the department head. David, I was struck by your picture from 25 years. I think I probably would look the same 5 years ago. I think when you're a department head, it's in dog years. So I've aged quite a bit, but I've aged out of a lot of enjoyment in this role. And this event is emblematic of that. I want to thank everyone for being here in person today. Also thank everyone who's watching online to this great event. We obviously have so much to celebrate, which is made all the more enjoyable and rewarding by your presence here and also online. I do want to also echo please join us tonight at the Naughty Brewery. My partner Eric and I checked it out the other day before we saw a Padres game. So it is a Penn State bar. Legitimately, apparently we did do our field work and we talked to one of the, and so you will all be welcome, but you'll see a lot of Penn State swag on there. I just kind of concluding, just kind of try to wrap this up very briefly. We obviously have a lot to celebrate from the last 25 years, but in planning this event and thinking about kind of what we wanted to engage with, and I think the topic of the event as well is to capture the idea that we are equally, if not more excited about the next 25 years. Okay. As you can see by our presenters and our faculty and almost all of whom are in San Diego this week, including, and also we are very appreciative of representatives from the college as well and Dean Kump. We will continue to educate, innovate, transform, and lead in these domains. Okay. This is made possible by the outstanding work of our faculty, staff, and students. It's also made possible by the generosity of so many of our alumni. And so this is where my department head hat is on. So you'll forgive me, but I do, however, want to acknowledge a number of existing funds that support the Department of Geography, the College of EMS, and also our online geospatial education program. The John and Elizabeth Dudden Innovation and Excellence Fund and the Dudden Institute is one. And I note that because it's possible John is watching this today. We have a Founders Scholarship Fund in the Dudden Institute. There's also a Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy Award in Geospatial Intelligence. I also want to identify some existing funds with folks who are present with us here today. David DiBiase, in addition to just kind of launching this highly successful program, has established an endowment. I'm going to make a donation next week to that, David, because this work that you've been doing for this event has been entirely voluntary. And so please also, I'm going to also acknowledge you. Bill and Corrine Irwin have a family geographics fund, and I believe they're watching online. And if they are going to be visiting us next week as well in Happy Valley. We can't wait. I'm looking out here like they're there. I don't know why I'm doing that. So I'm looking at you and Bill and Corrine, but we're very looking forward to hosting you next month and talking about geographics, riparian, and the number of initiatives we have going on within geography and OGE. Bob was mentioned. So Bob Meyer, Bob, can you put your hand up if you're, oh, go to the next slide. Thank you. I didn't practice, as you can tell. Thank you. Is Bob here? He was here. So Bob is here. So he's already been mentioned, but I really want to acknowledge Bob. Bob is one of our newest committed funds. Has been gifting the Geographics Lab, which is also kind of part of our OGE program. But we're very excited about that with support from the college, from Department of Geography, and incredible leadership by folks in the room, including Alyssa Iverson, who's here. We've been able to have a forward-facing cartography lab that's allowing us to advance our scholarship with our community partners in Pennsylvania and beyond. We're just getting started. We haven't even celebrated the 2nd-year anniversary of the Geographics Lab yet, but we're just incredibly animated by, I think we have half a dozen students working this summer. We've got grad students and people are launching into academic careers. And so Bob has, as you can see from this slide, has committed kind of as part of his fund a match to the Geographics Lab. And so if you're interested in learning more about that lab, please come and talk to any of us after this. Bob is incredibly visited the first time last month in Happy Valley. And so I think you're also there as a resource. And so let me thank Bob as well for that. And finally, I want to really acknowledge Jim McCrory, who's here. Jim, please put your hand up. And whose partner Jill's come on train. We'll see later today at the reception. Jim and Jill have been among our most enthusiastic and incredibly supportive alumni donors. We also appreciate how Jim has been very kind of eclectic in your donations. And what I mean by that is, for those folks who've been following our department and our Geograph magazine, a lot of the renovation that's been made possible on the second and third floor is because of Jim and Jill and that particular fund. And we are anticipating that project will be complete ideally in September by Obelisk. So when you're back, we hope to show you the panels and everything that's been going on with that. Jim has agreed to allow that fund to be a placeholder for folks who are present here, who are watching, or in the future who are interested in making a contribution explicitly to our online geospatial education program. This is one source. And so if you have questions about that particular fund, Jim is here and I'm sure can answer questions, as can we. The last thing I will say is that we are thriving because of the hard work of so many people that we've seen here today, but then also because of the generosity of so many of you who are in this room who are watching, and we thank you for that. I think it goes without saying that philanthropy is more important than ever in allowing academic departments, institutions of higher education to not only achieve our mission of teaching, of research, of scholarship, of engagement, but leading in it, which is our intention for the next 25 years. And that's made possible by so many of you, and we thank you for that. So with that, let me just please ask if you would join me in a final round of applause. This was an event that's been in organization for many, many months now. A good amount of leadership by folks on the stage, but also a lot of support from the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences, and we appreciate that so much. Let me just begin by thanking you for that. And want to just join me in thanking the presenters, the faculty who are present, the staff, and all of our alumni. And we will look forward to now just kind of transitioning back into kind of a reception to kind of talk some more. And then again, hopefully we'll see you later this evening at the Naughty Brewing Company. So please join me again for one final round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.